get so okay with being honest about it? Because I know a lot of borderlines and narcissists, of course, they're very sensitive to criticism. They don't like taking accountability, but you seem pretty good at that. So is that something you really had to work on, or how did that come about for you?
So it kind of started happening when I made my TikTok account. Like at first, like I was the victim and I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say. I ended up meeting somebody on there that had borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, and I like made him my favorite person right away. And so like everything he said, I was actually truly listening to him, and he was telling me about the toxic things I was doing, and I was noticing them and I was listening, and I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And then he would like talk about the things he does, the things I do, and I would see the similarities. And for once, like my eyes were open to what was happening. And so I just wanted to learn more. And so I started noticing the things like in my ex, for example, and I would realize, oh, like I do the same thing. I started making connections left and right. And it was basically because of that one person.
There you go. I think he gave you a gift of self-awareness.
Yes.
And he did it at a time before your frontal lobe and your brain's fully developed, because it takes till about 25 for a frontal lobe in the brain to be fully developed. And personally, I have a theory that if you can get like some self-awareness before you turn 25, you can be saved in a way that if you don't get that self-awareness till you're post 25, I think it might be much harder. But if you can get it before the brain's fully developed, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely agree with that. The timing was spot on.
Well, it's good, I think. And just you making videos on TikTok, that's kind of like a cognitive behavioral therapy, right? You're talking about your issues, you're being honest about them. Other people are able to identify and relate to them. And I think not only does it help you, but it helps the people that are watching your stuff too.
So people will ask me questions on my videos about myself, and that's where I have to sit back and like reflect and think, how am I going to respond to this? And that's where I'm acknowledging the things that I do, and I'm actually learning more about myself as I go through the questions that people are asking me. So
I got you. Well, Ralph Waldo Emerson said that you can't help anybody else without also helping yourself. And I think that is the cool thing. There is a lot of borderline people who are self-aware on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook now. Even some narcissistic people that are self-aware. And it's kind of becoming like a community of people. And I think as long as they don't get carried away, like on the fame and the fortune side of it, I think it could be a very helpful thing.
yeah, I think the more people that speak up, the easier it is for other people to speak up as well, and you don't feel alone. You have that self-aware community. You guys can all talk to each other about different things.
Right.
And before there was more of a stigma, and now it's more of something that people are talking openly about. So it's easier. It's easier now when you have other people doing it.
And because the one other thing I like to say is, like, everyone has toxic traits, because everyone has defects, everyone has shortcomings. It's just a matter of to what degree. And people, some of the criticism I will get when I talk about narcissists is, oh, people just overuse the term now, it becomes not as meaningful. And to which I agree to a point, but I also think that it's not the labels of things that matter as much as it is the behaviors. So like you're in a relationship with someone and they do certain behaviors, pay attention, right? And because how you respond as the other person, I don't think it really matters. Like the behavior is what matters, not what the person's label would be. So I say focus on the behaviors, because regardless if they're borderline, if they're narcissist, histrionic, bipolar, whatever it is, like if someone's going to be disrespectful, pay attention. If someone's going to invalidate your feelings, pay attention. If someone's going to flip the script and gaslight you a lot, pay attention. If someone's going to judge you and constantly be finding faults in you, pay attention. Right? Now, it doesn't matter what the reason why. Like, is it because they have MPD? Maybe. Is it because they have borderline? Maybe. Maybe it's just a person that has toxic traits and shortcomings. It doesn't matter the reason. but what matters is they're doing it.
And I think it's really important to acknowledge people's behaviors too, because a lot of times we'll just kind of see past it and forget about it and just pay attention to the good times. And that's what keeps us stuck in those relationships for so long, is like we will acknowledge it for a moment, but then we'll just like see past it. And we really need to pay more attention, because when you start noticing these things and and you notice how often they're happening, you're just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
I know for me, when I was in trauma bonds, the girl was like a drug. So it was like my fantasy world where I would spend time with her. It was like a break from my real life. And I would go off into fantasy land and just forget about my life and my responsibilities for the most part. And it was just like a drug at that point, right? So when it was a drug, it was very tempting to want to disrespect myself and overlook bad behaviors and overlook disrespect and all sorts of other things, because I just wanted to get to that feeling. I wanted to get to that feeling of,
It's the chase. We're like addicted to the chase too. We're addicted to that high. So even if it's been a while without feeling that high, we need to feel it again.
And that's what like gambling is, right? It's when people get addicted to gambling because it's intermittent rewards. So whether it's like a narcissistic person, they're never going to have consistent rewards, right? Because they're always going to be fluctuating between love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. So you never know which version you're going to get. But the fact that it's unpredictable like that and the rewards are intermittent, it makes it that much more addicting. So the girl I'm talking about, who was like covertly narcissistic, it was random. Like, it wasn't like a button I would push and boom, she was there. It was like, no, it was never that easy. It was always like a headache and a struggle to finally get to her, because sometimes she would ghost. She would sometimes just say, and blow it off. Other times she would flake. But then when it finally got to the time when we were actually able to see her, the payoff was bigger, because it was such a headache and a struggle to get to that point. So even if it didn't seem like it was worth it, it felt more like it was worth it because of all the struggle that I had to go through to get to it. And so it was all of these things working in tandem that made it much harder to break.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And so with that, I mean, eventually I had to stop seeing that person as a drug. Eventually, the behaviors she was doing, I kind of saw through them. And I said, okay, this is what's going on here. This isn't as magical and as fun as I once thought. It's really just kind of silly once you really take a look back at it. And you see the patterns very clearly, the love bombing, devaluing, discarding, the getting with other people, and the disrespect, and just them not treating you like a person they care about. And that's the other big thing too, right? They're just not treating you like a person they care about. They're treating you as a supply, which is different.
As property too. Like,
yeah.
Not wanting you to do the same things, wanting to have full control over you. So they're obsessed with you, but it's not love.